Well, here's one you don't see every day. This is a fretless that I put together. I was able to find a factory 1972 Fender Unlined fretless maple board, even Unlined fretless for sale, and it's in perfect shape. It's got some play wear, but I don't think it was used much. You know, people get something like this and they rapidly discover that with no lines, you get a couple side dots here, but your intonation is, it's in your hands, and you have to know your spacing and on the fretboard. Of course, it's not a fretboard; it's a fingerboard because there are no frets, so don't fret it. But it was in really great shape. The truss rod worked perfectly. Had some really cool, patina, and the board's in great shape. I had to clean it up a lot. I got a little bit. I kind of left on the top edge where it looks kind of gnarly because I just kind of I like the memory of how gnarly it was. Nasty when I first got it. Mostly just it had never really, I think, properly been cleaned. So took it, the F1 guitar polish, which is great for nitrocellulose coat, lacquers. So I got this neck, and the Gotoh tuners they look old, but they're new relic, and they're the exact things that size everything that Fender was using at that point, except they're a little bit lighter, which is nice because the balance is excellent on this. I've got to say, you never know when you're putting together one of these Franken basses, how it's going to shake out, but the balance is great. I had this body, which came from a 1981 or 82 Fernandez Revival Series. So basically, if you don't know, before Fender started doing the reissues in '83, there were companies in Japan that were making dead-on copies of the early Fender and Gibson too, but the Fender stuff from the pre-CBS era, and mostly because I think they were really rare to find at that time in Japan, and of course the designs are timeless. So this is like a 57 basically, with the full contour body, and it's a two-tone vintage sunburst, and it's actually even got the spec spray. So they did an amazing job. It looks and feels, it's alder, it's super nice, lightweight, resonant. Got a nice, hear that? So musical. It's got a nice resonance to it. So I put it together with this neck. I had this vintage, not a Fender, I think it's a really old WD pickguard when they used to do 5-ply pickguards. So this is a really dark tortoiseshell, but it's black, white, black, cream tortoise wing. But it's got a really nice look, especially since I had an ancient, I think these are from the late 70s, a set of this DiMarzio Model P pickup. And I love and that's obviously totally aged out. I don't know if you can see it, but it's got this nice cream color. Now you can kind of see the tortoiseshell a little bit too, and see how dark that is. Something about the way the colors of these things kind of all came together in my mind, and when I put it together, I was like, yep. I was thinking about black, a little too severe. I'd still think it would look pretty cool, but that would be much more of like a black and white kind of vibe. This tortoiseshell kind of lightens it up a little bit, softens it up. And then I found a early 80s BadAss II Quan bridge that was new old stock. I mean, it was in a box, so and the box was the old box, so I know it was one of the older ones. Plus, you can just tell the stamp is really super crisp. The newer ones that I saw in the late 80s and beyond, until they stopped making them, sometimes the actual imprinting in the casting was kind of looking. And this, if you can see it, it's very crisp and easy to read. CTS pots and Switchcraft jack, so it's got the right stuff for the era. So it's essentially kind of a 70s hot rod fretless, based around kind of a 50s body, but with a very kind of custom of that era look, because there weren't, now everyone takes it for granted that there's a million different options for everything, and you can get anything and everything online. Back then, you know, Leo Quan and a couple other companies were the only aftermarket bridges you could buy. There were some pickup companies, but not anything like the proliferation that, you know, everybody scatterwound pickups. You can, guy down the street from you probably makes them. And I'm not saying they're not good. I'm just saying that at the time that this, I'm kind of like shooting for this sort of late 70s customization period, there were limited suppliers for a lot of this stuff. And WD has been around forever. So I kind of like the fact that it's even though I just put it together, it very well looks like someone could have built it in 1979 or something. I really like it. I've got LaBella deep Talkin bass, medium gauge flats on it. These are flat wounds. This actual set of strings I've had for probably 15 years, and I've had them on a couple of different basses and played them a lot, and they're so perfectly mellowed, and just have a great feel. It has a really nice tone pretty much across the spectrum, but it really, I think, shines when it's in the sort of middle position on the tone, so it's rolled off halfway. And because the pickups are pretty high output, certainly more so than a stock Fender factory pickup would have been at the time, I like to roll it back just a little bit. It just takes a little bit of the edge off, and it's got a nice mellow, full, and it's very good feel. I mean, under your fingers and in your hand, it really feels great. Even with the tone rolled halfway off, it's super resonant and live. It's got a very live feel. So things like on a fretless, you can do this where you hit the harmonic fundamental, and then you can actually manipulate that, which you can't really do on a fretted bass, because as soon as you go over the fret, it kills the harmonic interval. And that can be kind of musical. That kind of stuff where you're actually sliding harmonics. I love that. Tony Franklin was really famous for doing that back when he played in the Firm back in the 80s. That, you know, just zing, there goes the note. The only real wear on the fret, I keep saying fretboard, the fingerboard, is someone had round wound strings on it for some period of time, and the vibrato that you get on a fretted bass, you typically get by running the string up and down, as opposed to like this, back and forth, which is much more like when you see violin players or cello players do that. It's the same thing. It translates exactly the same way. So you get a natural, you know, it's like a voice, you know, oscillating a little bit. With the round wounds and using it like a fretted bass, it eats up the finish on the fretboard. So there's some areas where if you look at it in the right light, you can see these lines going like this, and it's from someone doing that kind of stuff. And it's really, I mean, you can do it, but you're going to have to refinish the fretboard, fingerboard. Luckily, this wasn't so bad. I was able to clean it up. Still got some, residual lines, but it's not anything that I'm worried about. It didn't eat into the wood. I've seen fretless boards where they actually have pockets where the person was using round wounds and just aggressively playing, and it actually, that will mess up the intonation of the bass. It really, I love the way it sounds. Hopefully it'll sound reasonably good to you out there in listening land. And it's difficult to play certain lines on it that are really complicated, and you have to have really specific and accurate intonation. Of course, the whole idea of a precision bass, Leo Fender put the frets in the neck, and so you didn't have to have good intonation naturally. It made up the difference for you, which is why obviously fretless. Even you see people with fretless basses, and they're lined fretless. They've got the lines exactly where the frets would be, and it makes it a lot easier to kind of cheat. That's not, I don't mean that in a pejorative way, even though it's that kind of a word, but you don't have to be constantly factoring and feeling where you're at. But lines that have getting up in through here, it gets really complicated, because down here your spacing is like this between a whole note interval, and up here your spacing's like this. So you have to be thinking the whole time as you're going up, or feeling. You've got to be accurate, I guess is all I'm trying to say. The precision's on you, literally and figuratively speaking. So yeah, I really think this is a great bass. It is for sale, of course, because I'm not a collector, but it sure does play good. I mean, I don't know about, it's flat wound and fretless, so it's a little bit weird to play slap style, thump and pluck on it, but for finger style, it's great. And muting it actually has a really, palm muting it has a nice tone, palm muted and finger. I use the edge of my fingernail, so it's kind of a pick, and I get, you can get a really woody, nice. Nice full sound there too. So that's the odd bird of the basement at the moment, which is a 72 neck and a sort of a 57 reissue body. It's kind of a late 70s hot rod tribute, basically, is what I think of it as. So I hope you enjoyed looking at it. It's going to get really close. Really close. And there's my computer.